Yo, what's going on? It's Friday, and hey, I appreciate everybody who can tune in. Hey, shout out to y'all. Shout out to everybody who watch the channel, who view, who support. I appreciate and I'm grateful for each and every one of you. Yo, in today's video, we're going to talk about something that's just kind of trending the news, social media, everywhere. I've seen everybody just dive in and give their takes on Cassie's civil lawsuit that was filed in federal court against Sean Combs, P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, Diddy, whatever it is you want to call him. We're going to talk a little bit about this lawsuit. I'm actually going to go through the complaint. Now, hey, this is going to be an in-depth ride, but it ain't going to be the full version. We're going to go to the brief, truncated version because that thing 35 pages. We're not going through all that, but we definitely going to take a look at the facts and the allegations. I'm going to give my commentary. If you're new to the channel, I'm Marcus, the debt-free dad, where we talk finances, attorney takes, reactions, all that stuff in between. So, hey, I definitely invite you to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and click that bell notification so you can get updated when new content drops. Now, before we even look at this complaint, I got to put this in perspective because I just see every take. And every take, I'm not going to say every take, but like 98.9% of the takes I've seen out there are all bashing Diddy. Literally, they're like, man, it's supposed to be innocent to prove it guilty. But here in the United States, oh man, the court of public opinion is you know what. But we're going to talk about it. So before I even look at the complaint, right now, just so we know what's going on where we at, is nothing criminal. No criminal charges have been filed. This is all civil. It's filed in federal court, Southern District of New York. A lot of popular ass cases come out of the Southern District of New York. A lot of Supreme Court justices and high government officials come out of the Southern District of New York. That's kind of the court you go to when you want to shake something up and definitely make something happen. But let's just kind of put it in perspective, a bird's eye view. We got two people here in this situation. Cassie, who's laid out this 35-page allegation against Diddy, okay? Now, this is just a complaint. In the complaint, it's actually what it's called. It's a complaint. It's your opportunity to complain about some shit. So you get the opportunity to complain about whatever it is that you want to complain about. But the other side does have a chance to respond. They do have a chance to file a formal answer with the court where, hey, in your complaint, if you lay out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 58 particular counts or issues, the opposing side gets the opportunity within a certain time period to file an answer to that complaint. So right now, all we got is the complaint from Cassie's side, which is wild because like everybody is just bashing Diddy. So as it stands right now, me as someone who has his roots as a defense attorney, and I know a lot about DV court because I used to live in DV court as a defense attorney. But as a former defense attorney, someone who roots is in a defense attorney, right now we got to give Sean Combs Diddy the benefit of the doubt. All right, I know everybody gonna be like, "Oh man, this dude is misogynist," but hey, he hasn't been charged with anything. It's just a complaint. And if you've never drafted a complaint before, I've drafted a shitload of complaints. When you draft a complaint, you pretty much throw everything in there. You throw everything in there, including the kitchen sink. So you throw if Cassie went to her attorney and said this is what happened, the attorney had his paralegal take a bunch of damn notes. After he took that notes, all those notes, you know what he did? He went and took those notes and broke them down into separate counts, and he threw all of that stuff in the complaint. He didn't hire a private investigator. He didn't try to go corroborate any facts. He didn't do anything because, one, he probably don't want to spend the money, and two, is a complaint. You're just going to complain. A lot of times people throw any damn thing that's just some BS in the complaint. So we got to take what's going on here with a grain of salt because there's a complaint. I could throw any damn thing in the complaint. I have thrown some wild stuff in the complaint before that when I heard it, I was like, I don't know, but we're going to throw it in. What happens later when the other side answers the complaint, later on during court, both opposing attorneys, both opposing counsels they'll actually stipulate to what counts that they want to move forward with. So, for example, if Cassie laid out, yo, these are 10 things that I'm saying that Diddy did. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 through 10. Laid them all out. Diddy files an answer. Let's say in that 10, some of them is going to be some BS. Some of them may be a little hyperbole and maybe gassed up. Diddy files his answer to those 10 things. When they actually go to court, the attorney's going to come together. They're going to talk to the judge and they're going to be like, yo, Your Honor, right now we stipulate that out of those 10 things, 2, 6, and 9 we're not moving forward with. So we want to stipulate that we're only going to move forward with these particular matters. We're going to avoid all of these facts and not even address those things. So, hey, right now the ball is in Diddy's court because, hey, it's just a complaint. We got to hear his answer. I can't wait to see his answer because it's going to be interesting. But let's go ahead and dive into this. Let's go ahead and dive into this document. Let me put this document up. I got to maneuver my screen around a little bit. I got to maneuver this screen around a little bit so we can make sure everything is on the up and up. All right. Yeah, I can see I was going through it. Ain't no way I'm reading all this stuff to y'all. We're gonna get all the highlights and we're gonna chop it up and talk about it. Okay. So Southern District of New York, like I said, that's the court where if you want a career in something, be a prosecutor, defense attorney, a judge in the Southern District of New York. Cassandra Ventura, aka Cassie, Sean Combs, aka Diddy, P. Diddy, whatever you want to call him. And they also named every company he owns. Bad Boy Entertainment, Bad Boy Records, Epic Records, Comb, and Doe Corps 1 through 10. Why they put Doe Corps 1 through 10? Because Diddy got a bunch of companies out there and they want to name all of them. Or it's possible they may not know the name of all of them, which I seriously doubt because of who he is. It should be easy to find that, but you never know. But that's why they named Doe Corporations to try to and capture all of his other companies. Okay. Now, hey, this is a jury trial complaint. Like I said, it's a complaint. So it's all allegations right now. The ball is in Diddy's court. And hey, if you believe in the justice system, you got to be on Diddy's side. Sorry, ladies. I know what it is. I know a lot of y'all will always believe a woman, but we got to hear his answer. This is just a complaint, and you could technically throw any damn thing in a complaint. So we definitely got to remember that. All right, preliminary statement. Oh, that preliminary statement is interesting and detailed. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at this preliminary statement. I think this is important. Defendant Sean Combs is a rapper. Hold on, give me a second. Defendant Sean Combs is a rapper and a record executive, properly known by his stage names, all of them. Mr. Combs came to fame in the early 90s. His record label, Bad Boy Records, he rose to prominence in the music and entertainment industry over the decades and is regularly referred to as a hip hop mogul. He's definitely reached the mogul stage. He's one of the newest members to the hip hop billionaire crew. In 2022, Mr. Combs received the Lifetime Achievement Award at the BET Awards. During his, this is interesting. During his acceptance speech, Mr. Combs said, I have to give a special shout out, thank you, love to the people that were really there for me. He named a number of people before adding, and also Cassie for holding me down in the dark times, love. That's funny how they started that up, the dark times, because that's going to be a point of conversation. Well, what did you mean if a deposition is done? What do you mean, Mr. Combs, during the dark times? What was so dark during the dark times? Was it record sales? Was it personal things? Most people refer to dark times as personal things that they're dealing with in their life. So that's interesting that they threw that in there because, like, damn, that was in 2022. That was just last year. He gave his acceptance speech, and they used the slightest thank you that he gave to an individual, to Cassie, to say, you know what, we're going to utilize this dark times language. That's interesting. I wonder who idea that was. I wonder who idea that was. It probably was actually her idea, honestly. But it's interesting that they used that language in there. All right. The truth, however, is that Cassie, Miss Cassandra Ventura, was held down by Mr. Combs and endured over a decade of his violent behavior and disturbed demands. For Miss Ventura, the dark times were those she spent trapped by Mr. Combs in a cycle of abuse, violence, and sex trafficking, among other violent and unlawful acts. All right, now we about to dive into everything. So, yo, if you squeamish, if you have some issues with, you know, sexual abuse, trauma, violence, all the stuff that we're gonna have to read about to get through some of the meat and potatoes of this, there's a good chance for you to jump out and maybe go read up on it later at a later date. Okay. Mr. Combs R word Cassie in her own home after she tried to leave him, often punched, beat, kicked, and stomped Miss Ventura, resulting in bruises, burst lips, black eyes, and bleeding. Blew up a man's car after he learned that he was romantically interested in Miss Ventura. Forced Miss Ventura forced Miss Ventura to engage in sex acts with male sex workers while masturbating and filming the encounters. Okay, we all know Puff Daddy, a producer, and the person who is the producer oversees the composition of the music or the cinema to make sure it all fits. So, according to this, allegedly, he dove right into his producer role as he recorded these alleged sex acts that he is purported or presumed to have done. All right. It also says that he ran out of his apartment with a firearm in pursuit of a rival industry executive whom he learned was nearby. Demanded that Miss Ventura to carry his firearms in her purse just to make her uncomfortable and demonstrate how dangerous he is, and introduced Miss Ventura to a lifestyle of excessive alcohol and substance abuse, and require her to procure illicit prescriptions to satisfy his own addictions. Oh man, that's a lot. All right, we didn't even get deep into it, but hey, that's a lot. I don't know. Let's read a little bit more before I give the first point of commentary. Okay. Paragraph number 4. Miss Ventura met Mr. Combs in 2005 when she was 19 years old and he was 37 years old. Eh, almost. Hey, that's a big ass age difference, but it is, huh? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's common. I feel like we see a 20-year-old age gap all the time. I think what's uncommon is a 20-year-old age gap when the female is 19. Normally, it's like a 20-year-old age gap, like 50 and 30 is what we normally see. Okay. He signed her to his label, Bad Boy Records, and with a few years, lured Miss Ventura into an ostentatious, fast-paced, and drug-fueled lifestyle, and into a romantic relationship with him, her boss, one of the most powerful men in the entertainment industry, and a vicious, cruel, and controlling man, nearly 2 decades her senior. All right, so let's talk about this. There's a couple of things at play here. Okay, they are definitely going to play up the fact that she was a teenager, even though she was 19. We know that 19 is the age of majority. The age of majority generally in the United States is 18, but we know that 19 is definitely the age of majority. So it's nothing creepy there. But hey, I already know how the game go. If I was drafting this complaint, I would continually refer to her as a teenager. Not putting 19, I will say 19 once. I would literally mention 19 once in this second page, like they did. And every point thereafter, I would probably refer to her as a teenager. Because generally, when we hear the word teenager, we don't think like 19 or 18. We think like creepily numbers, right? Like you think young high school age. And so I think that's probably that's one of the common things you see when you see a complaint like this. People will say, like, okay, if she was 18, we're gonna say her age once on the front end. On the back end, we're gonna refer to her as a teenager because that's something that they are gonna want to build on. Teenager, immaturity, lack of frontal lobe development, so inability to make sound decisions. Another thing that they're going to definitely look at here, which makes this complaint actually kind of unique. Normally, you would see a complaint like this against an individual, individual A versus individual B. This is a little bit different because we have Cassie, who is in a romantic relationship, but she's also an employee of his, which makes it a little bit more unique and complicated, honestly, because when you have an employer employee relationship that y'all get messy. Hey, fellas, generally you don't want to eat where you shit is the general rule. But I can't talk. I met my wife at work. But generally, it normally ends in a colossal disaster, just based on my experience and observation. So normally, the issue is that's going to get brought up in court is a power dynamic. So you have that youth button that's going to get played. She was a teenager, no frontal lobe development, couldn't make decisions, barely on her own. You have this high powered, multi-million dollar executive who was also her boss, who lured her allegedly with fame and fortune and stardom. And it was a vast power dynamic. So that's the issue you always see when you see the youth argument and when you see an employer employee relationship. They always look at the imbalance in power. So that's definitely going to get played up. Mr. Combs asserted complete control over Miss Ventura's personal and professional life, thereby ensuring her inability to escape his hold. He provided unprecedented avenues for success for the expiring artist. They building up that. Hey, we got to build up that power imbalance so everybody can clearly see it. Avenues for success for the aspiring artist, but in return demanded obedience, loyalty, and silence. Throughout their relationship, Mr. Cone was prone to uncontrollable rage and frequently beat Miss Ventura savagely. God, look, you see those words they throw in? They could have said frequently beat Miss Ventura, but they gonna throw in that savagely. Hey, you got to build this up so when you read it, just like everybody on YouTube who already chastising Diddy and throw him under the bus, even though these are all allegations. But you got to use that language to build it up because when you use the language like, hey, savagely beaten, it paints a picture that, is easy for the reader and a potential juror or jury pool to visualize. These beatings were witnessed by Mr. Combs' staff and employees of Bad Boy Entertainment and Mr. Combs' related businesses, but no one dared to speak up against their frightening or ferocious boss. And let's just keep it a buck. That's not uncommon. Like, hey, if it's somebody who's the CEO, a lot of times people gonna hold their tongue. A lot of times, not everyone's, but a lot of times it's not uncommon for people to kind of let the person who's the HNIC, so to speak, move and say things that are probably a little over the top that they normally wouldn't let people do because they are in fear that they would lose their livelihood. Those people who work for him can be replaced like that. And so if he got people on staff, he paying them a good salary. Like, yo, I ain't see nothing. They gonna be in there looking like Ray Charles. A lot of people don't want to see that gravy chain or that money stock. So that is something that's actually common. Following these episodes of horrific abuse, Mr. Combs would immediately attempt to hide Miss Ventura and the evidence of the violent rage. He often showered her with gifts following incidents of physical violence, a typical pattern of behavior by serial abusers. Like, come on now. Like, have we, hey, again, I'm gonna give them credit for the how they are using language and they are using very descriptive words to paint a picture because like this is just I don't know. I think this is a little bit of embellishment. They saying, yo, Diddy whipped her ass, but he always bought her gifts and lavish things, and it says gifts following incidents of physical abuse, a typical pattern of behavior by serial abusers. Is Diddy a serial abuser? Like, I don't know. Y'all let me know. Have y'all heard of Diddy? I was looking for my red cup. I gotta get a sip on when I'm doing all this gun flapping. But y'all let me know. Have y'all ever heard? I don't recall. I'm not someone who's entrenched in the music industry, but I don't recall hearing that Diddy was a serial abuser of women. I just don't think that that's the case. I don't think that, from my understanding. Y'all let me know if, hey, maybe I'm missing. Maybe Diddy had a bunch of instances out there where he allegedly, put hands on women, but I don't think that's the case. But you see, they're using language like serial abuser to try to paint that picture. All right. Paragraph 8. In addition to physical assault, Mr. Combs frequently reminded Miss Ventura of his ability to cause serious harm, whether by requiring her to carry his gun in her purse or by blowing up the car of a musician that was romantically interested in Miss Ventura. And I think the rounds probably already got around. That was Kid Cudi, and Kid Cudi actually came out and confirmed that, like, yo, I did have a car that blew up in the driveway for no reason. So I don't know, like, I don't know, like, you say you had the cat. She's saying that Diddy had this dude car blow up. This guy was like, yo, my car did blow up. I would be interested to see what the report says about that. But I'm gonna just put it out there. And hey, these are all allegations. I'm not saying Diddy did it, but if I was a multi hundred millionaire and I was gonna engage in an act like that, I probably would be wise enough to make sure I covered up the fire marshal's report so that it looked like it was a combustible engine problem or something like that. All right, so yeah, blown up car, Kid Cudi, he already came out and confirmed that. Adding insult to injury, Mr. Combs used illegal substances and threats of violence to force Miss Ventura into repeated unwanted sexual encounters with male sex workers. Like, yeah, that's male sex workers. Like, hey, that goes back to him using that production hat, male sex workers, as he sat in the corner, according to the allegations that we have here. Over the years that Mr. Combs abused Miss Ventura physically and sexually, she again and again tried to escape his tight hold over her life. Every time she hid, Mr. Combs' vast network of corporations and affiliated entities found her, and those who worked for Mr. Combs' companies implored her to return to him. Many went as far as to expressly state that her failure to return to Mr. Combs would hinder her success in the entertainment industry. Imbalance of power due to age, imbalance of power due to the employer employee relationship, imbalance of power due to his monetary ability and his ability to grow a career. Which, I'm gonna be honest, we gotta be. I don't know a Cassie song. What was a Cassie song? I think I know one. I don't even know the words to it. Was it "Me and You"? It's just me and you. That's the only. That's the only words I know to the song. I don't know if that's a real song, but I feel like she had a song called "Me and You" that I vaguely remember. But hey, whatever her entertainment career success was, it was because of Diddy. I think we all can generally agree to that. I don't think that's up for contention. All right, at paragraph number 11, when she believed that she had finally separated from her longtime abuser, she joined Mr. Combs for a dinner, after which he forced her into her home and R-word her while she repeatedly said no and tried to push him away. Now, let's talk about paragraph number 11 for a minute, okay? Because I know a lot of people are going to read that and have an initial thought of, yo, if he was doing all of this for over a decade, abuse, drugs, mental abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, if he was doing all of this stuff, when you finally get away, why in the hell would you go out to dinner with this dude when you already know what he's capable of? But we got to understand the context of how people react to forms of abuse. And like I said, I used to be a defense attorney. So I've represented a lot of people in domestic violence court. I've done mediations for persons in domestic violence situations. I've received probably thousands of hours on trainings on abuse symptoms, how to interview people who were victim of abuse, some of the emotional and characteristic traits that they have, the personality traits. So everybody reacts different. So when you hear this, as crazy as it sounds, I know some people gonna read paragraph 11 and be like, "Why the hell would she go out to dinner with him?" But some people are abused and they get fed up and they'll ground up some glass and put it in your tea. Or some people that get fed up and just wild out and end up whipping their abuser's ass. Other people get abused and they got some Stockholm syndrome. They form a bond with their abuser. Their abuser abused them so much when they do something positive, they're like, "Oh, he really loves me, or she really loves me." It's like I got a dog that's it was a dog that was subject of abuse. I was like, "Yo, I'm gonna get this dog." And my dog occasionally, he used to do it all the time, but occasionally he has these scary ass moments where like he'll do something and I'd be like, "Stop that!" Now I raise my voice and I can see his reaction to where he ball up and he kind of scared. Then I look at him and be like, "What the hell?" Then I gotta realize like, "Oh yeah, I forgot he got a little PTSD and he'll come out of it." But people react the same way. People can get tired of the abuse and lash out, but some people get abused, and when the abuser does something positive, they look at it as, "Oh, this is an endearment action. He actually cares about me, or she actually cares about me." So we can't look at point number 11, the fact that after she thought she got away, she went back to this dude to eat dinner. I know a lot of people are gonna be like, "Yo, she's stupid. Why did she go out to eat dinner with this dude in the first place when she already know the kind of guy that he is?" But we generally can't look at it like that because everybody reacts different. Men and women react different. People just act different to abuse. Some people like, "Oh, I'm out of that situation, but we can still kick it." Other people like, "Yo, what the hell? You can't kick it with somebody who did that to you." So that's something that is going to be a point that's definitely challenged if this ever goes to trial, which I seriously doubt. All right, paragraph number 12. Miss Ventura has now fully escaped Mr. Combs, but the harms that the assault and sexual abuse has caused her to experience for nearly a decade. Man, that's a long time. So from 19 to 29, God damn, that's a long time. For the sexual abuse he caused her to experience for nearly a decade will forever haunt her. She has required intensive medical and psychological care to recover from the trauma she lived through. Intentional infliction of emotional distress from everything that she's saying in these allegations she put her through. She had to get in. If these allegations are in fact has a basis, yeah, you probably would need some therapy and all that because you're gonna be jacked up. So again, allegations. So right now I'm Team Puffy until I see the facts. All right, she cannot, however, continue to live in silence about what she endured. Mr. Combs remained immensely powerful and immensely dangerous. Miss Ventura therefore asked justice for the decade of her life that Mr. Combs took away from her with threats of violence, excessive use of drugs, physical and psychological abuse, and sexual slavery. Accordingly, she brings this cause of action and she notes a bunch of federal statutes, sex trafficking laws, New York State's human rights laws, blah, 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 blah. All of these sex trafficking laws, they originated from the Mann Act. Y'all know what the Mann Act is? The Mann Act was a law that was enacted post slavery, where occasionally you had couples who engaged in interracial relationships, and they actually made it a violation of the Mann Act to carry a woman across state lines for sexual purposes. And that law was used as a mechanism, a vehicle to punish African Americans who were traveling with white women across state lines. So just a little history fact since y'all so we can know where this trafficking and all evolved from. But it was originally called the Mann Act. All right, jurisdiction and venue. We're not gonna go all of that. Jurisdiction. Does the court have the authority to hear this case based on the subject matter and the nature? Venue, is this the right court location wise to hear the case? Yes and yes. Parties, I think we know who The parties are Cassie, Diddy, Sean Combs, Bad Boy Entertainment, Bad Boy Records LLC, Epic Records. I told y'all because of the employer employee relationship. That's why they named everybody. This is it's weird because they had a relationship, but there's an employer employee relationship. And remember, uh, when you have an employer employee relationship, the employer, the company, the entity is essentially on the hook for the acts of the individuals employed if they're doing these acts during the course of their official duties, which gives a lot of leverage. So Diddy is the president of Bad Boy, but we see him as Bad Boy, but technically Bad Boy is its own corporate entity. Him as the president, founder, CEO, whatever he want to call himself, he runs those things day to day. If he engaged in acts that are wrong during the course of his business, him in that role, the company is liable. That's why you got Bad Boy, Epic Records, everybody kind of named up in here. Now, we're going to talk about these factual allegations. And before we even go in, I think that they did a really good job in organizing and writing these briefs or this brief. And I'll tell you why. I I clerked for a federal judge at the federal level. I clerked for a justice at the highest court, at the Supreme Court of a state. And the best briefs that I would see that counsel would write for arguments were ones that were know how to that knew how to compartmentalize arguments, so they separated it out. A lot of times you'll see attorneys, they'll write a complaint, and man, that complaint names it has 65 issues. It's no page break, it's no column, it's no tab, it's nothing broken out. But you see here, Roman numeral number one, teenage Miss Ventura meets middle age Mr. Combs as her career begins. Well, again, I told y'all, y'all probably never see the word 19. Y'all may this is the second time I'm looking at it, and in paragraph 25, they say 19. But if it were me writing this, I would never refer to her as a 19-year-old again. I would always refer of teenage. That's why they did that in this header, because the word teenage, hey, if you look at this header, the word teenage, your mind doesn't associate teenage with a 19-year-old. You know, if somebody say, hey, uh this teenager got hit by a car. You like, what was it, 16, 15? That's just kind of how your mind works. That's why you won't see the age used a lot. I bet you this may be the last time that we see it. All right, teenage Miss Ventura meets middle-aged Mr. Combs as her career begins. 19 and 37. Miss Ventura met Mr. Combs in late 2005, early 2006, after Mr. Combs heard Miss Ventura's first single playing in the club and expressed an interest in signing her to the label Bad Boy Records. At the time, Miss Ventura was 19-year-old and Mr. Combs was 37. That's a big age gap. Well, let's take that back. 20 years is not a big age gap. 20 years is just looked at as a big age gap when the youngest involved is only 19. If you see 50 and 30, you like 50 and 30, whatever. 60 and 40, it's just that 19 is what makes that almost 20-year gap just looks a little bit like it's a. And remember what I said, it's all about the power imbalance. 19-year-old, no frontal lobe development, no real life experience, inability to make decisions on her own, potentially easily influenced. So that's what they're going to paint with all these allegations. Remember, hey, Team Diddy until the facts prove otherwise, and we got to take a look at his answer when he files one. Okay. At the time, Miss Ventura was 19, he was 37. Within months, in February of '06, Miss Ventura signed a 10 album deal with Mr. Combs' record label. Now that's mad sketch already. I'm gonna tell y'all right now, if if I'm her attorney, a ten album deal is wow. Like that's a dead giveaway that like a 10 album deal. I would actually love to see how many artists throughout the history of Bad Boy have actually signed a 10 album deal. Probably her and the people on making the band, and that's about it. But a 10 album deal is wow. That looks a little, it adds to looking a little sketch because you're trying to lock somebody up in a deal that's like, but 10 album deal. Her first album, Cassie, was released in '06, debuting at number 4 on the US Billboard 200. Again, all that credit in my book goes to Diddy because I literally only know one Cassie song. I think it was called "Me and You," and that's it. So, hey, whatever her achievement was in her career, we gotta, hey, in all honesty, Diddy has to get all of the credit for that. All right. To promote the album, Miss Ventura made television appearances on MTV's TRL 106 in Park. She suffered from significant performance anxiety during these appearances, and press outlets were highly critical of Miss Ventura's performances on these shows. Mr. Combs, however, sought to rehabilitate his newly signed talent, telling MTV News again, 19, the pressure. Everybody not cut out to be a star at such a young age. You could, this is Diddy's quote to MTV, you could hear the nervousness in her voice. And to be honest, I kind of smelled, I kind of smiled at it because it made me really appreciate what I really love about her. She's a regular person. It just made me appreciate that she got nervous, and it was kind of cute to me, to be honest. You got to understand that success for her is coming out of nowhere. It's just so huge, and sometimes everybody handles it differently. Hey, okay. While clearly paternalistic, is that paternalistic? They're trying to say that's like a fatherly approach, mentor type of thing. While clearly paternalistic, and noting that it was cute to him. However, regular Miss Ventura appeared, Mr. Combs' comments rang true to some extent. Upon signing with Bad Boy Records, Miss Ventura was quickly thrust into the spotlight and was unfamiliar with how to navigate her new celebrity status. Mr. Combs' recognition and glorification of Miss Ventura, naivety, naivety, I can't even get the damn word out, but provided proved to set the groundwork for his manipulative and coercive romantic and sexual relationships with Miss Ventura, a woman nearly 2 decades his junior. Naive. She's naive. She doesn't have the experience or the maturity to know how to navigate the pressure, the stress, all the scheduling. So Diddy was like, yo, this could be too big for you. Stand back. I'ma handle things. Within the year of signing with Bad Boy Records, Miss Combs became deeply entrenched in Miss Ventura's life, almost immediately asserting possession and control over her and inserting himself into all aspects of her career and personal life. In November of 2006, Mr. Combs invited Miss Ventura to perform his song Come to Me along with him at the MTV Europe Music Awards in Copenhagen, Denmark. After rehearsal for the performance, Mr. Combs walked around in a robe with a drink in hand, flaunting his lavish party lifestyle to his label's newly signed artists. Isn't that what record label execs supposed to do? Like, I don't know. I don't think that's crazy. That's consistent with, I think, what we've come to know about Diddy and what we've seen from Dave Chappelle's skit on Making the Band. So I don't know. I don't think that's bad. I think that's just common. I think that, hey, hip hop is about boasting and being braggadocious, right? During hair and makeup leading up to performances, Miss Ventura's hairstylist and Mr. Combs' makeup artist told Miss Ventura that Mr. Combs was interested in Miss Ventura. Miss Ventura shrugged off the gossip, and in fact expressed disgust given the large age gap between her and the president of the record label. Let's just, I don't know. Like that is it disgusting though? Like, ladies, I don't know. Like, I think that, like, if if someone was like 19 years old, if someone was like, 19 years old and they were at their first job working at a car dealership, they working at a BMW dealership, and the general manager of the Eastern region BMW dealerships in the metropolitan area came over, and word on the street was that that person was interested. I don't think it would get brushed off. I think that, and this is something that's going to be an argument. Hey, that they're going to be some flattery there from the power dynamic, from the ability to have career progression. Best believe that that's the argument that's going to get brought up. Like, no, he didn't take advantage of you. He tried to cultivate you as an artist. You took this as an opportunity to get career enhancement. But I don't know. I think that if Diddy is expressing interest in someone, like, even now, probably, I don't think they'll just brush it off. They'd be like, "What? Who? Me?" Like, I don't know. I just think I don't know. I think that's a point that's is going to get some pushback and challenge on just in court if it ever comes down to that. All right. Emphasizing the age and power dynamic early on in their working relationship, Mr. Combs positioned himself as a father figure and protector of Miss Ventura. By way of example, after returning to New York after a trip to Las Vegas, during which she endured a brief hospital stay, Miss Ventura, who by then was fully healthy, went out to the club with her friends. When Mr. Combs saw her out, he reprimanded her, telling her to go home and take care of herself. At the time, Miss Ventura thought her record label was looking out for her well being and that Mr. Combs had her best interest in mind. Mr. Combs also ensured he was intertwined with Miss Ventura's personal and social life. For instance, inviting himself to Miss Ventura's 21st birthday party in Las Vegas. He also brought along famous musicians and producers, thereby flaunting his celebrity status and influence in front of a young and impressionable Miss Ventura. Again, I don't know if that necessarily goes to anything outside of that's what I expect that a record label boss CEO would do. Like, yeah, if I'm having a birthday party, I expect you to show up, buy out the bar, buy out the bar, and have some celebrity friends come through as an artist. If I'm your artist, that's what I would expect. So they're trying to use that to build on that power dynamic, but some of the points they're using to make and show an imbalance of power dynamic, I'm sure Diddy probably did that to a lot of his damn artists. Hell, I'm sure back in the day when Sean was coming up at a birthday party, Diddy probably pulled up, bought a bunch of bottles, and popped out with a bunch of celebrities and rolled around with his robe on, holding the bottle of Cristal. I think that's what everybody was drinking back then before everybody found out that Cristal was racist. All right. Although Mr. Combs knew Miss Ventura was in a relationship at the time, and even though he was publicly in a relationship with Kim Porter, rest in peace, Mr. Combs nevertheless pursued Miss Ventura. At an after party in a hotel suite following Miss Ventura's birthday party, Mr. Combs pulled Miss Ventura into a bathroom and forcibly kissed her. Miss Ventura did not consent to the unwanted contact. She immediately ran out of the bathroom and the hotel suite and cried. She told her best friend at the time about what happened, but was too scared to tell anyone else. Now, hey, again, you always gonna have people like these are just allegations. So right now, the ball is in Puffy's court because, like I said in the complaint, I've put I've wrote complaints and put stuff in them where I didn't have the facts necessarily to support them, but we can figure all of that shit out on the back end. But sometimes when you see factual contentions or points made like this, a lot of people will jump to the, well, why didn't you tell somebody? If this happened, why didn't you tell somebody? But this is where the age comes into play. This is where the immaturity comes into play. This is where the trauma actually comes into place. It's actually not uncommon for victims of trauma, whether it's sexual or emotional trauma, to not tell anybody until they feel like they're at a point where they think they can cope with it. Now, I will tell you the fact that she told her best friend immediately after, even though we can't really prove the truthfulness of that. But if that's her assertion, that's definitely something that's a positive in her favor. Normally, when these things happen, people who you tell about them and when you tell them, the closer it is in proximity to the event happening, the more truthfulness people tend to give the facts or the statements that you're making. So, if if somebody alleging, oh, person A did this to me, they punched me in the face, and you tell two people the day after, that has more credibility and more weight. Their testimony will have more credibility and weight than if you told those two people 6 months later. So, you know, just think about it. They're in a hotel. She runs out crying. Who's not going to notice a woman who's relatively famous? She's rolling around with Diddy. They're in this hotel. Who's not going to notice this woman running out crying like snotty and shit? Like, it's something that people would be able to. Now you're probably not, because that shit's so old. Them people who worked and witnessed that are probably long gone. Any video footage is probably long gone. So hey, we're gonna throw those points in the favor of Mr. Combs' direction because hey, these are just allegations. All right. At the Video Music Awards the following day, Miss Ventura's boyfriend at the time joined her and Mr. Combs at a table for the award ceremony. Mr. Combs became angry, telling Miss Ventura that the invitation to the award ceremony was only for her and not for her significant other. All right. Point number two, they break this out beautifully. Miss Combs lures Miss Ventura into a relationship. So it was employer, employee, couple of advances. She's shrugging it off, allegedly. He trying to make this kiss. She like, nah, fam, I don't want to do that. She run out bawling. Now, despite her clear rejections, hey, when you're doing all this reading, you gotta make sure you got a little libations. Despite her clear rejections, Mr. Combs advances. Mr. Combs continued to demand Miss Ventura spend time with him, including for the weekend, at Mr. Combs' residence in Miami and for nights out in New York City. On one particular night around September 2007, Mr. Combs insisted on taking Miss Ventura out. Miss Ventura acquiesced, fearing that rejecting Mr. Combs' request would have repercussions for her album deal with Mr. Combs and his company, Bad Boy Records. Miss Combs picked up Miss Ventura from her apartment in Manhattan in a blue luxury vehicle. Miss Ventura was surprised that when she got into the car, Mr. Combs was already inebriated. He handed her a pill and told her to take it. When Miss Ventura asked what the pill was, Mr. Combs dismissed her and told her that she would like it. She later learned the pill was ecstasy, something Miss Ventura had never done before, had never before tried, and did not want to try. This was the first time Mr. Combs got Miss Ventura high. Okay, so this, she's trying to say Diddy got a little bit of Pill Cosby in him. Again, allegations. We don't know the truthfulness in that. But I'm just, that being said, okay, I will tell you from what I can recall of the time when I saw Diddy and Cassie around and they were an item and I saw 'em, I'm not gonna lie, just me from personal observation. You're talking to somebody who has probably thousands of hours in trials and investigations into abuse, neglect, domestic matters, formalized training on all of that stuff. Formalized training on all of that stuff. A lot of instances, she did have what I often refer to as the victim walk. Like, what is the victim walk, DFD? The victim walk is like individual A walks out in front, individual B walks about 3 paces behind, don't look happy to be there. Like, okay, if I had to give y'all a current situation, our former president and first lady, like, sometimes when you see them, she kind of had that look like, I don't really want to be here. And that's what, people refer to as the victim walk, so to speak. Okay. All right, he picked her up in the car. He already twisted. He handed her the pill. Mr. Combs proceeded to drive recklessly at a very high rate of speed down West Side Highway in Manhattan. Miss Ventura was scared but did not dare object to Mr. Combs, who appeared drunk, high, and agitated. Mr. Combs took Miss Ventura to an upscale lounge in downtown Manhattan. where he proceeded to get into an altercation with security staff who would not permit Mr. Combs to enter, presumably because he was belligerent. Now, is that why they didn't let him in? Miss Ventura decided to go home, but for the remainder of the night, Mr. Combs massage a message Miss Ventura. I said massage. He probably did that too. He messaged Miss Ventura incessantly, complaining that that she left him high and alone. That's crazy. Like, I don't know. Like, isn't I don't know. That's wild. Like that would be a wild thing to call. Like, man, why'd you leave me high and alone? Like, I don't know. Guys complain if they left high and alone. I think that's kind of weird. But in fall of '07, Mr. Combs flexed his power and influence when he paid a promoter to create a fake flyer to create a fake flyer for a party hosted by Miss Ventura. This fake posting allowed Miss Ventura to have an excuse to go to Miami, Florida, and get away from her boyfriend by using the guise of a legitimate event she had to attend. Miss Ventura was stunned at how easily Mr. Combs was able to recruit others to lie for him. Oh man. Hey, challenge. I'm gonna hit the challenge button if I'm Diddy lawyer. Like if I'm Diddy's lawyer, I'm like, you saying that the most arguably the most powerful man in hip hop and urban entertainment at the time had to go to Staples and print out a flyer, a bogus flyer for a performance, so you can give your boyfriend, who's an up and coming artist at the time, just so you have an excuse to leave. I, I, I don't know. Like if he did that, if that accusation is true, that's really crazy. If that accusation is true, I think that's really insane because I just don't think that he would have to do that. He is Diddy is clearly aware, as anybody would be, of their power and fame and his position as the boss of the record label. And he got you signed to a 10-year dummy contract, a 10 album dummy contract. That could be way more than 10 years. He got you signed to this locked in contract. He could have just been like, yo, hey, we got somewhere to be. Let what's his face know. But that's wild if he went through that. I would love to see that flyer. I wonder if she kept it. I wonder if she kept it and took a picture of it. Now, hey, if she released that flyer, like, yo, if she released that flyer, that would be actually a good factual point on her behalf. Because think about it, if she released that flyer and somebody at that spot was like, nah, she didn't perform here, she didn't have an engagement here. It's interesting. They may be sitting on it. They probably took a picture of that John or something. I don't know. This '07. So by the time '07 was around, everybody had cameras and all of that stuff. So that'll be interesting. Miss Ventura was uncomfortable with the fake flyer, but because the request to go to Miami was made by the owner of a record label, and because she was scared to go against his wishes and face repercussions, as to her career, Miss Ventura agreed to join Miss Combs in Florida. During the trip to Miami, Miss Combs provided Miss Ventura with copious amounts of drugs. She became more intoxicated than she ever had before, and her intoxication lasted throughout the weekend trip. As she wanted Mr. Combs to continue to support her career, she felt that she could not refuse Mr. Combs urging her to take more drugs. After providing her with drugs, Mr. Combs had sexual intercourse with Miss Ventura during the trip. Within 2 years of meeting Miss Combs, Miss Ventura found herself lured into the immediate circle of her boss, the owner of the record label, and one of the most powerful men in the entertainment industry. All right, let's see. Let's look at these other headers. Man, this complaint is wild. I'm just going through, checking out some of these other headers. Okay, all right. We gonna truncate this up because your boy ain't about to be on here all night. Yeah. Oh, okay. Let's see. Let's see where the most substance is. He exerts control. Mr. Combs exerts control over Miss Ventura's career and personal life. Let's scroll down. Mr. Combs aggressively demanding approach to those who work with and made it impossible for anyone to challenge him. Miss Ventura has saved up some earnings from her young modeling career, and Mr. Combs' ostentatious display of wealth to intimidate her. Mr. Combs especially lavished vacations on Miss Ventura, purchased a car for her, paid for her apartment, provided her with expensive amounts of designer clothing. Around 2008, 2009, he began to rent an apartment in Manhattan for Miss Ventura. The apartment was within walking distance from his New York residence. He showed Miss Ventura apartment by bringing her along there with her parents. Miss Ventura's parents were skeptical of the mogul's display of wealth, but proud of their daughter's newfound success. Yo, as a parent, I think that's a tough situation to be in. Um, like that would be like that. I don't know. Like maybe this is just me, but sending your like 19 or 20-year-old child to work with someone like Diddy who's really hand on, like I'm gonna feel a little sketched about that personally. I would be like, I don't know. Like, would you send your 16-year-old daughter to work with like R. Kelly even before the conviction? Like most people wouldn't, but somebody actually did. And people actually have. So I think that's always something that's mad cringy, okay? Around 2010, Mr. Combs similarly paid for an apartment for Miss Ventura in Los Angeles, which was located 5 way away from Mr. Combs' residence. He paid for many of her apartments in California and also purchased her a Jaguar around 2013 or 2014. Hey, it's if you got if you got if you got a side piece, hey, if of course you're gonna want to keep her in close proximity. I mean, that's just kind of the nature of how it goes. Let's fast forward to point number four. Mr. Combs and Miss Ventura relationship becomes violent and abusive. Okay, because this is where the meat and potatoes at. All right, what's what started as a whirlwind of celebrity meetings and drug and alcohol fueled parties, however, quickly turned frightening, and violent. Miss Ventura was also exposed to intense violence that mm, pervaded Mr. Combs' rise to fame. For example, on one occasion, when Mr. Combs and Miss Ventura were using drugs together in his home, one of his security staff barged in and announced that Suge Knight, a longtime rival of Mr. Combs, was spotted at Mel's Drive-In Diner in Los Angeles. Mr. Combs began to get dressed, received multiple guns from a safe, and ran out of his house where he believed Mr. Knight was dining. Miss Ventura became terrified and began to cry. This was in when? This was I don't know. Like he he might have like alleged. These are all allegations. If this happened, I'm gonna call cap. Like it's like this is like sometimes there are things that people do just to leave an impression with a person. So like, yo, I'm about to give her up. I'm putting on the bulletproof vest like 50 Cent. I'm running out the house with two guns. Yeah, we're gonna get Suge Knight for what happened all them years ago. And he probably went outside and was chilling, like, man, she in there tweaking. I don't know. I just think that that's wild. I seriously doubt that he went out running out looking for Suge Knight. So what they're trying to make is that the how it was viewed to her from her perspective, whether or not he actually did that shit or not, because I seriously doubt it. Okay, on at least two occasions, Mr. Combs demanded that Miss Ventura hold Mr. Combs' gun in her purse. Miss Ventura had no familiarity with firearms and was petrified that the firearm would actually accidentally go off in her purse. Blah, blah, blah. Over the next decade, multiple times each year, Mr. Combs would violently beat Miss Ventura, leaving bruises on her body. After every instant in which he beat Miss Ventura, Mr. Combs used his money and power to orchestrate extensive efforts to hide the evidence of his abuse, including by hiding Miss Ventura in a hotel for days at a time to let her bruises heal. In one such instance, after a party with Jay Z, Mr. Combs beat Miss Ventura repeatedly in an escalade, including by kicking and hitting her. He forced her out of the vehicle on Fifth Avenue in New York City. She was eventually able to hail a cab to get to her apartment in Manhattan, where she cried in fear, realizing there was no one she could tell about what happened at the hands of the incredibly powerful man. She spent the subsequent 3 days in hiding in her apartment. In January of 2009, after Mr. Combs learned that Miss Ventura spoke to another music manager at a party in LA, he became enraged. She had hoped speaking to this manager would allow her to further grow her career and Mr. Combs would be happy for her, but instead he became extremely angry and pulled her out to the curb where the party was taking place. In the car leaving, leaving the club, Miss Combs beat Miss Ventura, pushing her into a corner of the vehicle and stomping her on her face. Mr. Combs' security staff, Roger Bonds, tried to stop the beating, but was unable to de-escalate the situation. His security staff, So now she pulling out the names. That's all people who could presumably be talked to. When the car arrived at Mr. Combs' residence, Miss Ventura attempted to run away, but Mr. Combs followed her and proceeded to again kick her in the face. He would knock her down and kick her in the face, I'm assuming, or was he just just roundhouse kicking her while she was standing up? Miss Ventura was bleeding profusely and was ushered into Miss Combs' home, where she began to throw up from the violent assault. Upon recognizing the damage he had done and the physical evidence of his abuse, Mr. Combs panicked and forced his staff to bring Miss Ventura to a hotel at the London Hotel in Los Angeles, where she was required to stay for a week. During her stay, as her injuries from the beating healed, Miss Ventura began to fully realize that Mr. Combs' tremendously loyal network not only knew about and witnessed his assault, but also that these witnesses were not willing to do anything meaningful to stop Mr. Combs' behavior. She recognized that she was powerless and that reporting Mr. Combs to the authorities would not alter Mr. Combs' status or influence, but would merely give Mr. Combs another excuse to hurt her. While in the hotel, she asked to go home to her parents, but Mr. Combs wouldn't let her leave. She lied to her mother when asked about an online gossip forum that reported the assault. Interesting. Okay, so it was something out there that talked about this particular instance, allegedly. Mr. Combs proceeded to instruct his assistants to purchase excessive amounts of gifts for Miss Ventura, which were delivered to the hotel room where she remained trapped. Miss Ventura was terrified, isolated, and unable to see a pathway out of Mr. Combs' abusive hold on her life. She found herself numb to the abuse she was experiencing and became beholden to Mr. Combs' demand. She began to blindly follow his instructions out of fear and again being on the receiving end of a vicious beating. By Mr. Combs' own admission, by Mr. Combs' own admission, his relationship with Miss Ventura was like Bobby and Whitney, a clear acknowledgement of the unequal power dynamic and excessive domestic violence that permeated their relationship. From the outside looking in, Miss Ventura had heard others refer to her relationships with Mr. Combs as akin to Ike and Tina. Damn, that's interesting. Her volatile, abusive partner, who also owned the label and therefore held her future success in her hands, had fully exerted control over every aspect of her life. All right. Now, Mr. Combs forced Miss Ventura into sex trafficking. Within a few months of beginning a romantic relationship, 40-year-old Combs and 20-year-old Ventura felt beholden to his whims and demands. While in New York City, Mr. Combs told Miss Ventura that he wanted to engage in a fantasy of his called voyeurism. Mr. Combs said that it would turn him on if he saw Miss Ventura with another man. Okay, y'all can read that on y'all own. We want to keep it not rated triple X. For the first time, Mr. Combs hired a man. He brought the man to his home in Los Angeles. The man, Mr. Combs, and Miss Ventura wore masquerade masks. This some 50 Shades of Orange type shit. Wore masquerade masks and ingested drugs. Mr. Combs directed Miss Ventura to perform sexual acts with the man while Mr. Combs watched. Then he masturbated while he directed Miss Ventura and the man to do specific sexual acts. The encounter lasted multiple days. God damn, multiple days? That's crazy. Miss Cole, Mr. Combs began to call the arrangement a freak off or FO. He would repeatedly tell Miss Ventura at random moments that he wanted an FO, and Miss Ventura was eventually expected to facilitate the location and the hiring of the male sex workers. Yo, these are wild allegations, but again, all alleged allegations. We gotta wait till I got Diddy respond. All right. At certain points during Miss Ventura and Miss Combs' relationships, he would insist on an FO weekly. Mr. Combs would repeatedly tell Miss Ventura that this practice was our thing and our secret. FO would often take place in hotel suites, including the Trump International Hotel. That's ironic. In Columbus Circle, in Beverly Hills, the London Hotel in LA, various other uh, hotels. On one occasion around 2013, Mr. Combs had an FO set up at the Intercontinental Hotel in New York, after which he was charged with tens of thousands of dollars for damage to the hotel. Upon information and belief, Mr. Combs' chief of staff, Tony Fletcher, paid the invoice charged by the hotel. Ms. Ventura eventually instructed the use of websites to escort services to find male sex workers to participate in the FO. Mr. Combs told Miss Ventura to search for large black. Diddy had a type, clearly, okay? Allegedly. Allegedly. She alleges that Diddy had a type. Sometimes Mr. Combs would pay to fly male sex workers to his locations, including multiple cities in the United States as well as abroad. He required Miss Ventura and his staff to help him make these arrangements. His staff, would set up the FO, including setting up the hotel suites, the baby oil, and Astroglide. Yeah, those are essentials if you're going to have an FO. Mr. Combs' assistants would help set up the FO, including by setting up the hotel suites. Oh, I already got to that part. 87. He always supplied Miss Ventura and the sex worker with copious amount of drugs. Before and during the FOs, Miss Ventura was given ecstasy, cocaine, GHB, ketamine, marijuana, and alcohol, excessive amounts during FOs, which allowed her to disassociate during these horrific encounters. All right, so hey, these are all allegations right now. So all the videos y'all see out there that they got Diddy looking like a terrible person, and these allegations, if true, would make that true. But there are allegations, and this is just a complaint. I gotta keep saying that for legal purposes. But let's see. He would film these things while Miss Ventura quickly deleted photographs and videos of sex acts they were taken on her phone. Mr. Combs repeatedly made clear that he retained many videos of Miss Ventura during FOs. He would pay male sex workers a few $1,000s in cash for their services. Mr. Combs would become intoxicated and would hit Miss Ventura in front of the male sex workers. He would present her with gifts prior to and in the middle of FO, seemingly acknowledging the way in which these forced sexual encounters constituted work. Man, those allegations are kind of crazy. All right, I'm looking for, and this is where we're going to stop it at. This is the last, man, it goes on and on. All right, we only got two more. We're gonna give the Reader's Digest version of these last two. All right, she tried to escape on multiple occasions. Mr. Combs sent his employees to lure Miss Ventura back in 2011 during the rough patch. Mr. Combs and Miss Ventura relationship. Miss Ventura had a brief relationship with musician Kid Cudi. When Mr. Combs returned from a trip, he demanded another FO of Miss Ventura. She acquiesced. During the FO, Mr. Combs found Miss Ventura's phone and found emails between her and Cudi. Mr. Combs became enraged and proceeded to place a manual corkscrew between his fingers and lunged at Miss Ventura. She ran away to stay at Kid Cudi home to escape Mr. Combs' wrath. Soon thereafter, Mr. Combs' staff members told Miss Ventura that he needed to talk. Feeling like she had no escape from his network, Miss Ventura returned to Mr. Combs. He hit her several times and then kicked her in the back as she tried to run out the door. She went to her parents' home in Connecticut, where her mother took pictures of bruises Mr. Combs had left on Miss Ventura's body. In February 2012, during Paris Week, Mr. Combs told Miss Ventura what? Okay, I'm confused. Like, all right, this part is kind of confusing me because it was a weird transition. She tried to get away. At some point, she went to her parents' house, and her mother took pictures of bruises that were left on her body. And like, what happened after that? Then they fast forward to 2012, where Diddy allegedly told Miss Ventura that she was going to blow up Kid Cudi's car and wanted to make sure he was home with his friends when this happened. And Kid Cudi actually confirmed that he did have a car that just randomly blew up in the driveway for no damn reason. But let's back up to the thing with the parents, okay? All right. You have your adult daughter. Your adult daughter is at the house. And I know when she showed up to the house, she probably was crying. She probably was in a state of panic. She definitely wasn't happy go lucky or all joyous. Y'all see, your boy got different types of libations going on. But she showed up to her parents' house. She shows up to her parents' house. When she shows up to her parents' house, her parents takes pictures of her body to show the bruises. What happened next? They just move on to the next instance in 2012 with Cuddy's car blowing up. Because that's weird. Because I would like to think as a parent, if my daughter shows up to my house and I got to take bruises of her body, two things are probably going to happen. One, we're definitely going to the authorities, okay? If she doesn't want to go to the authorities, that's fine. But I'm going to the authorities. And if she doesn't want to follow through, that's on her. Number two is I'm going to have Diddy come pick her up at my home so I can take care of it personally. But that's neither here nor there. I just find it odd that, like, I don't know. Is that bad parenting if those allegations are true? Like, you take pictures of your daughter. Why is she showing up there to take pictures? I don't want to hear that, oh, she was scared. She didn't want nothing to happen. She showed up there and agreed to get naked so your moms can take pictures of you so you can record these bruises. So those pictures are out there somewhere in the ether. Um, I don't know. I think as a parent, you have an obligation to make sure that you report that to the authorities. You don't got to go after Diddy. You don't got to try to whip his ass or shoot him or all of that stuff. But I think you have an obligation as a parent to go to the authorities, whether your child wants you to or not. If my daughter show up like that and she's like, no, but don't because my career, I don't give a flying, you know what about your career. Nah, you my daughter. And if me doing this is going to make you feel some type of way towards me, so fucking be it, in my personal opinion. All right, let's fast forward to the next allegation. All of these is just wow. This relates to by 2017, 2018. Mr. Combs rapes Miss Ventura. I don't even think we got to dive into this. Okay, Mr. Combs' sexual and physical abuse caused Miss Ventura lifelong harm. I think that's patently obvious if these allegations are true. All right, so that's it. We're not gonna go into all the claims. Essentially, all the claims, I'll just read them briefly. Violating the Human Trafficking Act that New York has. That's one of those laws that spun off that Mann Act that we talked about in the beginning. Another cause of action, violating the California Trafficking Act. Sexual battery under New York law. Fifth cause of action, sexual assault in California. And gender motivated violence, gender motivated violence. Seven, sexual harassment, gender discrimination, hostile work environment. Hey, that's a big one. Hostile work environment. That's a big one because that definitely goes to the employer employee relationship. And that goes to a big ass bag if this case is settled. Sexual harassment, hostile work environment in New York. And they're looking for money judgment, punitive damages, exemplary damages, attorney's fees. Wigdor LLP. I didn't look up the firm, but I know they're gonna do that work because this firm. Nah, it's all good, man. What's up with you, brother? I'm just now wrapping up, man. But I'm sure that law firm is happy as hell because they doing all this for free. They ain't charging her anything right now because they trying to get that 33%, one third of that judgment. And I actually looked on the website, and this is open source, so you can actually find this out there. It looks like Diddy actually made an attempt to try to settle this matter with an eight-figure settlement, and that settlement was declined by Cassie and her counsel. So let's just look at it. Diddy worth, he a billionaire, so his net worth is $1 billion. She's looking for about $30 million according to reports. $30 million is 3% of $1 billion. So one, Diddy has it, but we don't know if he has it if he's that liquid. Just because you're a billionaire doesn't mean you got $1 billion cash. Just because you're a millionaire doesn't mean you have $1 million cash. He has $1 million in assets, which includes businesses. So a lot of that stuff is tied up in assets. But it's gonna be interesting because I figure in the next 2.5, 3 weeks, Diddy is going to file an answer to this case, and this is going to be interesting to look at to see how he responds to this. I'm gonna tell you right now, if I was his attorneys, I'm like, yo, you need to resolve this and make this go away. Like, I'm gonna just keep it a buck with you. Like, yo, we don't want to go down the road of discovery. We don't want to bring her parents in. We don't want to bring her parents in. We don't want to see the photos that they probably got that they took. We don't want to see the photo of the fake ass flyer that you allegedly made. All of that is going to look bad. Like, yo, bro, you just gave everybody back their masters. You got an album that's out that's actually not a bad album. We want to keep the good momentum moving forward. Push this out, resolve this. Now, I know a lot of people, a couple people asked me, like, well, why didn't Diddy just give make her sign an NDA? If you sign a non-disclosure agreement, then that insulates him. And yes and no, because a non-disclosure agreement, it does provide you some insulation, but it doesn't provide you insulation from criminal conduct. Like, yo, come over here and work for me. And when you come work for me, hey, I need you to go help me rob this bank. But sign this non-disclosure agreement saying that you won't know. A non-disclosure agreement isn't going to bar anybody from not having to disclose criminal conduct, and it doesn't protect you from litigation. It just protects you from telling anybody outside of litigation or for law enforcement purposes. So an NDA really wouldn't have helped him. Like, nah, NDA, you can't go tell TMZ, you can't tell your moms, you can't tell your boys, but an NDA, you can tell the judge, you can tell the court, you can file legal actions, you can tell law enforcement if a crime actually occurred. So that's kind of where that at. So y'all let me know what y'all think about this whole situation. Right now, like I said, like, yeah, I'm not saying this is all cap, but I've seen and written a lot of complaints that had stuff in them that we really didn't have factual basis for. We just went off of what the client told us. The client told us that this happened. This is what we're going to put in there. It's up to you to file an answer to address all of these and say that this happened, this didn't happen. You'll parse all of that out. And at the end, there's going to be some agreement. The parties normally get together and be like, hey, we stipulate that we're going to proceed on counts 1, 6, and 9. Everything else is garbage. We agree to that. And the parties agree to that. Because I know damn well her attorneys didn't hire a private investigator to go out and look at the veracity and the truthfulness of all this. Nah, she came in the office and sat down and said Diddy, and that attorney eyes got big because he was like, shit, I'm about to buy that house on the beach that I wanted. I'm about to retire early because attorneys like to get that bread. So it is what it is. That's it for this video. Yo, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out the other content. It's content related to attorney reactions and finances. Hey, this is definitely a financial impact because, hey, it could be that Cassie's paper is low and, hey, Diddy a billionaire, so she gotta make a play, or it could be that there was genuinely some harm done. Some of these accusations may be truthful, and hey, her getting a monetary award would be just. Does she have an option to proceed criminally? It just depends. I think, but I'm not familiar. I haven't looked at the specific laws in New York and California, and it just depends on what the state laws are. Some state laws put an a specific statute of limitation time period of felonies, criminal actions. Some don't. If it's abuse, domestic, it may have an extended statute of limitation. So that's going to be interesting. Why wouldn't she proceed with a criminal matter? Well, if I was her attorney, I wouldn't advise her to proceed with a criminal matter as well. You know why? Because the goal of this is to get compensation to address the wrongdoing. Once you hand it over to a prosecutor, you lose your ability and some leverage to negotiate things. So that's it for this video. Y'all take care and have a good weekend. Let me check out the comment real quick. B5 didn't get their masters back. Man, you can't have the masters of one. I don't even know one B5 song. At least I know one Cassie song. Me and you. I know one Cassie song. I literally have no clue who B5 is. That B5 Marcus Houston? I don't know. I don't know, bro. That's before my. I was never one of them group peoples, man. I can't relate, bro. Y'all have a good weekend. Peace.